What's up guys, this is Miasin. So just like yesterday, we made a video on the best decks of the current format, well, post Rage of the Abyss. Today we will be going over the best going second cards, and I'm not gonna bother making a different video for hand traps and board breakers. I will combine them at the same time. Usually hand traps have a tendency to be kind of above board breakers, but then when a format is established, people, well, I mean, especially the pro players, they start replacing the hand traps with board breakers, and they also play some Kashtira cards and everything. We've seen this with Snake Eye, we've seen this with Ubel. As a matter of fact, that's how ETPAT just won YCS Cancun, so maybe board breakers can still be good post Rage of the Abyss. Anyways, before going any further, you already know the drill. Smash the like and subscribe button, and also huge shoutouts to my sponsors Inspire TCG as well as Dueling. And please check them out and use the coupon code YASIN656 for 5% off. The links will be in the description box below. And also, watch this video until the end. Don't be a bitch. Lava Golem is the first one. Not everybody can play it, but it is a good tech card because if you don't need your normal summon, if you're playing maybe Kashtira or Labyrinth or something like that, Lava Golem can be great for you. Ultimate Slayer, I think, is going to be insane next format once we get crossover breakers, because this card trades remarkably well against the Raziel deck, but at the current moment, I don't think it's like super ideal, so I don't think you should consider it. Change of Heart is actually remarkable. Not everybody can play it. I still think it's one of the more powerful one-offs that you can play, and it's not like Lava Golem where it locks you out of something, so I think you really should be looking into Change of Heart. By the way, I'm not including Mind Control and Snatch Steal here, so when I say Change of Heart, I'm talking about monster stealing cards in general, but not Triple Tactic Talent because that one has 3 effects in total, so you can't really compare. Soul Release is very interesting to side deck at the current moment. You can even do 1 Soul Release and 3 copies of Triple Tactic Thrust because the Fire King deck is no joke. It is really good. And honestly, even outside of Fire King, Soul Release might still be solid. Like against, let's say, White Forest Runic, for example, you can Soul Release like pretty much all of their level 4 monsters to summon themselves back, and then they have to chain, and you can also banish all of their runic spells, and they're going to be drawing less cards. That's just like a random example, but there's also like other applications, so I think this card is not too bad. And also, if you can banish like Flamberge and all the level 1 Snake Eyes that your opponent has, he's basically no longer playing a Snake Eyes deck because there's very few names now, so honestly this card can also hurt pure Snake Eye, or rather should I say Azamina Snake Eye. Cosmic Cyclone is... nah, this one's insane. It really is insane. Honestly, this is one of the best cards that you can side at the current moment. It covers so much ground. It's overall just such a good card going first and second. Very safe into just about everything. Like, even against Ubel going first, you can banish the opening, you can banish the field spell. Against the Azamina deck, you can banish the Deception or the original that they set with the Abel Star. Remarkable card. A huge fan, seriously. And also against Fire King, it is also good going second because it kind of behaves like a Dark Hole Regeki. It's gonna wipe their whole board if you banish the island, and that's not too bad. And also, it might cut them off from their follow-up if they only play 1 island. But I think most Fire King builds are on 2 islands, unless it's like the Snake Eye Fire King build and not the pure build, or rather, should I say, Azamina Fire King. But yeah, you get what I'm trying to say. Sphere mode, just a little better than Lava Golem. They are kind of comparable. Sometimes they're interchangeable. Sometimes Lava Golem is the better one. It really does depend. Infinite Impermanence is quite literally a card that you absolutely have to main deck because it doesn't lose to Shifter or Triple Tactic Talent or Call by the Grave. Unlike Effect Veiler, which I do not think you have to main deck at all. Regeki is a very good tech choice. I don't think it's a card that people should necessarily be side decking. But in 10 by Dragon, for example, you can main deck this card. I think this card, you either kind of main deck it or you just don't play it at all. So it really does depend on the deck that you're playing. Lightning Storm, solid side deck card. I mean, I have absolutely no objection. I think it's a great card. Ash is, objectively speaking, the best because it is the most generic. Everybody can play it. Nothing much to say about Ash, honestly. Ash is Ash. Typhoon is super, super interesting. You can also main deck this card, by the way, because it is very interesting. You can use it as an interruption against the Snake Eye deck when they go Sinful Spells Deception, search something, get the Sacred Azamina, and then activate that, and then you chain Typhoon because now they control the Deception and the Hallowed Azamina. You destroy the Deception, and then the Hallowed Azamina might just fizzle because there's nothing to send. That's honestly a really cool interaction. And also, if your opponent has a Floodgate, Typhoon is a double utility card because you can also use it to destroy like There Can Only Be One or Skill Drain, Deck Lockdown, those kinds of cards. So honestly, the fact that it acts as a Ghost Ogre or as an MST when you need it to, this is what really makes this card very interesting. Evenly Matched is also very interesting. I think it's a little better than Lightning Storm because against, let's say, Labyrinth, Lightning Storm can be countered by the Runic cards and by Lord of the Heavenly Prison, whereas Evenly Matched, on the other hand, they specifically need Solemn Judgment. So this card has a much higher likelihood of being oppressive, keep that in mind. Spell card, Soul Exchange. Very niche, and it's only really good in Flunderies, which I don't think is good at the moment, so I'm not really gonna rate it too high. Harpy's Feather Duster is, I mean, comparable to Lightning Storm, so there is very little to say here. It's also interchangeable, which one is the better one. I don't really care too much, I'm not really picky on that. DD Crow, I do not think is like super ideal, but it's also not garbage. It is a very respectable card, and it does have some random utility against like certain kinds of decks and certain kinds of matchups. So one of them, for example, let's just say I'm playing Yubel and my opponent goes Hieratic Seal effect. I can chain DD Crow to the Hieratic Seal just to prevent it from special summoning the Quakimeru Draco from the deck, because Hieratic Seal has to stay in the same location as it was when it got tributed in order to recognize that it can use its effect to special summon from deck. Otherwise, it will just not trigger. It's going to miss the window of activation. So yeah, DD Crow sometimes can randomly do cool things like that, whereas Bestials, for example, might not do might not do the job, because your opponent will not control another monster since he's tributing the Seal for cost. And usually Seal is the only monster that your opponent even has, so that's not as ideal. Triple Tactic Talent as a going second card, I low-key actually don't think it's great, but I still think it's a little better than Regeki. But as a going first card, definitely a very good card. Going second, I think usually the timing for this card is not the best, because by the time you get to use this card, it might be too late, you might have already committed too much. So I think this card is not super great against good players. Forbidden Droplet is quite clearly a classic. Everybody can agree on the fact that this card is fantastic, for sure. Nibiru is interesting because the Azamina decks are extremely good at beating it. Fire King can also beat Nibiru pretty well because of Arvada, so it's not even like they gotta do like weird things with Divine Temple or make the Rhea Silvera Omni-Negate. No, they basically have it built in, which is kind of interesting. In the middle, in a way, it's a staple in the side deck or even in the main deck, but in the main deck, I think it's not really worth it because it's dead against Tenpai, it's dead against everything that isn't like Azamina or Yubel and all those decks, and Fire King, and also this card isn't even that great if it's like your one and only hand shop, so I think this is only really good post-game 1 going second when you're bringing in so many other hand shops that Nibiru finally has a way to shine. Otherwise, it really sucks. Even against Memento, it gets easily countered by the SP play where you banish your own combined creation. So it's not, you can't rely on this card at all. So that's the reason why it's in the middle. Blink Out, very interesting. You can also use it on yourself. So I know that the Plan deck can do something really cool where they essentially summon the tree, the Sunavalon Dryas, I think that's the name. And then you get Impermed, you chain Blink Out, you return it back to the extra deck, you revive back the Loci, and then you still search for the Sowing, and then you go for another Dryas, and then activate Sowing, and it's still full combo. So this basically behaves as a cross out when you get Impermed on the Link one, which is really cool. So it has the dual utility. And going second, you can also break boards because if your opponent controls like a Link monster that's annoying for you, you can just return it back to the extra deck. It's kind of like a defusion for Link monsters, which is honestly kind of cool. So yeah, shoutouts to Julius for playing this in his Rika 60 card deck. I think it has a lot of nice potential. I don't think it's like a card that everybody should be playing either. Okay, Kashtira cards in general are honestly really nice in the side deck because going first they're nice, going second they're nice. Overall, just good cards. As going second cards, I don't think they're that insane unless you're also committing to playing board breakers, in which case I think they're extremely good, because they apply pressure as soon as they're summoned, and then you're probably going to be using a monster effect, which then turns on their triple tactic talent and stuff, which I think is, as a matter of fact, you know what, I will increase the rating that I gave to triple tactic talent just because of the existence of the Kashtira cards. All these cards in conjunction with each other are very good, and also even when you play Kashtira cards, you can still play some hand shops like Imperm, Ash, but then you can't really play like Veiler and stuff like that. It kind of defeats the purpose of trying to play board breakers. It's really just one or the other, but Ash being able to stop Molchimiforos is kind of like the no-brainer here. Anyways, Bestials, I think they really fell off. I think they're not as good as they used to be, just because Fire King doesn't lose to Bestials, and the Snake Eye Azamina deck, it just turbos out like an Omni-Negate at the speed of light, so I just don't think it's super good. And also, Tenpai Dragon is the #1 best deck at the current moment, and it doesn't give two shits about Bestials whatsoever. Artifact Lancia, I wouldn't bother with this card as of yet, honestly, it's not worth it. Retelling Sea, this is definitely a card that you gotta side, but here is the must main section. Clearly, Retelling Sea is not a card that you gotta main, but it is the best side deck stable for sure. If you can resolve this card against any of the deck that loses to it, like Memento, Snake Eye Azamina, Farking Azamina, whatever, when it hurts, this card basically becomes like a shifter that you can play generically, even if your deck is not a shifter deck. You also have a body on the field, so you can normal summon anything else, make Moon of the Close Sky, and play from there. So even in like a mirror match, this card can be completely cracked. Triple Tactic Thrust. I think it's worse than Talent as a going second card, unless you're playing a deck that is pretty much designed to utilize this card. But again, you gotta be playing like a board breaker deck. As a going first card, I think it's much better because you can thrust into like floodgates, like D-Bearer, different dimension ground, Karma Cannon, etc. This is not the kind of thing that you can necessarily do going second. You're pretty much gonna have to search like another board breaker. So it's really hard for me to like really evaluate this card as a going second card in the current format, unless you like it, like I said, you're committing to the approach. Book of Eclipse, extremely good card in the side deck. Maybe comparable to like Forbidden Droplet, better or worse. It's very debatable, but yeah, this card has a lot of nice interactions, and even going first is not too bad. Let's just say that you have a full board of like a bunch of negates and you get hit by Dark Ruler. You can start using all of your interruptions at the same time, and then you chain Book of Eclipse, you flip them face down, they still resolve. When a monster becomes face down, it kind of forgets that it was negated in the first place. Ghost Mourner is not a card that you gotta play. It is one of the weaker hand traps, so you can afford to just not have this card whatsoever, but it's still a decent tech card overall. Super Poly is weird because you gotta play some extra deck cards in order to make it work. You gotta dedicate at least 2 to 3 slots because it has to be Garura, Mud Dragon, and either Dragostapelia or the Azamina Soul Eryxiton. That one is like an illusion and a fiend, so you can use their Rhea Silvera as well as their DSE Ray. And on summon, you can send another card on the field to the grave. So you can pick apart like so many interruptions just off of Super Poly. Usually it's not enough because their end board is so ridiculously cracked that you might still lose, unfortunately. So I think because of the fact that it doesn't necessarily get you all the way there, Super Poly is just a card that I think, even though it's really good right now, it has the potential to catch people off guard. It's not good enough as if it's like your one and only board breaker. Darkhold, a little worse than Regeki, just because we don't really have cards like Ibli running around, so it's not like you can say that destroying your own monsters is insane. Dominus Impulse, if you can play this card, you gotta play this card. It is completely unfair, like beyond insane. Well, I mean, yeah, no, it's a must main if you can't play it. There you go, that's what I should be saying. Gamma, I don't think is super ideal, but obviously where there is Gamma, there's also Delta. I think there's going to be a world in which these cards can come back, but I don't really think that they're super nice right now. They're really not that amazing, not gonna lie. Molchemi Foraros is like the card that you absolutely cannot enter a tournament if you're not playing 3 in your main deck. Unless you're playing something like Tenpai Dragon or, I mean, sorry, if you're playing like Labyrinth or something like that. Otherwise, yeah, you kind of gotta play this card. If you tried going first, it's gonna be your discard fodder for whatever you needed as a discard fodder. And if you're going second, you win the game. Literally that simple. It is that insane. This card is completely stupid. Anyways, Dark Ruler no more. Obviously, it's, for me, very comparable to Forbidden Droplet. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. I think it's really good to side deck because it's not like you can draw it if you're going first, whereas Droplet, if you draw it going first, it's better. So Droplet is much better to main, whereas Dark Ruler, it's much better to side. But if you are drawing this card going second, it's much better than Droplet, unless you're playing against like a Gimmick Puppet or something, where they can do some things in your draw phase or standby. And also, if your opponent summons like an IP from the Spell and Trap Zone with Temple, Droplet can take care of that, but not Dark Ruler, because all of that happens at the exact same time, and there's pretty much no window for you to really Dark Ruler. Ghost Ogre is actually a solid hand trap. It is one of the better ones that you can play. It still loses to Shifter, and I don't know, there's a lot of decks that don't necessarily care too much about it, but still, Azamina, whatever utilizes Deception, is gonna be very angry when they get hit by Ghost Ogre, because that's like a minus, huge minus, especially if they had to start with Witch. It's like discard 1, set Deception, and then tribute another monster from hand, get Ghost Ogred, and then they got 2 cards left in hand and a Witch on the field. That's it. And then if you have like 1 or 2 more hand traps, the game pretty much is completely over. Anyways, that's Contact C. Nah, it's not good at the current moment. Ghost Reaper is also not good yet, but it will be very good in the future. Skullmeister is little dog shit. By the way, this should probably be up there. Ghost Bell also not the best, unless we get like a Labyrinth Tier 0 format, which will definitely not happen. Phantasme is honestly not good, just because the way the Azamina Snake Eye deck plays, it summons the Omni Negate before summoning a Link, so sometimes by the time you get to drop Phantasme, they already have all the advantage that they need, so I really don't like the timing for this card. If you could use it earlier, I think it would be better. As a matter of fact, I think even the Rescue Ace package might be a little better than Phantasme, or at least I prefer that timing, but obviously it has to play a brick, so that's the reason why people don't play it. And it doesn't summon you a monster that can negate like Imperm and stuff like that, so that's understandable. Anyways, Spankratops, that is a very good side deck staple, super amazing. Maybe a little worse than Bestials just because it's not a handshot, but it's still a card that can take care of a lot of things. I think it's actually kind of comparable to Cosmic Cyclone, but this card is only good going second, whereas Cosmic, the reason why it's so high up here is because it's going first and second, so it just gets extra bonus points, because if you play it in your side deck, you're gonna be even happier for having it, whereas cards like Lightning Storm Duster, evenly, yeah, whatever, these cards are gonna be good less often. Okay, Mochimi Borrelia is very good, but not as good as Fueros, so this one is just a side deck staple. You don't necessarily have to main deck it at all, and I think it is maybe here, something like that, very close to Nibiru. You can play maybe 2 Borrelia on your side. You don't necessarily gotta play 3, but if you want to, you can also do 3 Borrelia, 3 Fueros. You know, that's like the best copium way for us TCG players to pretend like we have Maxi, but it's Maxi at home. Except for this one, it's not really Maxi at home, it's almost Maxi. It's really scary. Anyways, Dimension Shifter. Yeah, obviously if you can play the card, right? Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer. Metaltronius, I think this card fell off, unfortunately. It used to be really broken on the side deck against the Snake Eye Fiendsmith deck and stuff like that, and Ubel. But now it's a little worse because they will always summon the Rhea Silvera in order to be able to negate that. So unless you target the Rhea Silvera, not gonna do anything. And also it's like a Dark Illusion with 1900 attack. It's honestly garbage. It's really bad. It's not like you can negate Caesar and then summon DS E-Ray and then Fiendsmith combo from there, because that would have been like completely insane. But no, it's never a happy line like that. So unfortunately, Metaltronius is just not as good as pre-Rhoda. Herald of the Abyss, it's not fantastic at the current moment. Droll and Logbird, it's probably below Nibiru, because if you are playing Droll, it means that you're not playing the Mochimi cards, and I think that these cards are maybe a little too good not to be played. There is no shot that you can play the Mochimi cards and Droll and Logbird because it conflicts, obviously. You're trying to draw cards, but then you're trying to not draw cards. Thinking, yeah, doesn't really make too much sense. Anyways, now we've got Dominus Purge, which is absolutely not on the same level as Dominus Impulse. The power level difference is quite substantial. So you simply do not have to main deck this card, even if you can. Even if your deck doesn't play any whatever dark, fire, and water monster effects, this card's not even that insane. It's like way worse than Ash, whereas this is actually very close to Ash. You can draw Dominus Impulse as a going second card, and if your opponent tries to go IP into SP, you can negate that. That is absurd. And also same thing with Unchained Soul of Rage. Like, keep that in mind. This is such an unfair board breaker. Yes, because it is a handshot and a board breaker, by the way. Anyways, Anti-Magic Arrows. Why is this even here? I don't even know. Effect Veiler, I already mentioned how this card is drastically worse than Imperm because of all the extra weaknesses. It's not good to draw for turn. It loses to Cobb at the Grave, Talent, Shifter, etc. It's annoying. I can't count the amount of times where if I draw Imperm instead of Veiler, I would have won. But, you know, it is what it is, right? That's Yu-Gi-Oh! For you. Chaos Hunter, a lot of really cool things that you can do with that. I will be covering this very soon. But honestly, I changed my mind on this card. It's really nice. And even as a handshot, it's solid. So yeah, very good tech choice. But not everybody can play it. And finally, we've got Enemy Controller, which is yet again another solid tech choice. But I think it's a little too naggy, so I wouldn't really play it as of yet. I think this is relatively solid for a top 50. By the way, I forgot to mention this. Top 50 best handshots and board breakers going second for the Rage of the Abyss format. So yeah, I hope you guys were able to enjoy and maybe learn a thing or two, or 3 or 4, we never know. And if you did, let me know in the comment section below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.